here. Let my computer confirm that we are live.
All right, cool.
And
Hey, the red light went on, so we're live.
yeah. And so give me one moment. Bear with me for a moment.
Yeah, no problem.
All righty. Okay, and we're live. Hey, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Thank you for joining the webinar, and we are honored to have Mr. Rick Baptist with us. Rick, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure, Joe. This is way cool. I'm so thrilled. I was looking forward to this. I kept going, come on, go faster. It's too slow. Yeah.
So those of you who don't know Mr. Baptist, and I did my research, is the most recorded brass player in history. He has over 1,000 film titles to his credit. If you have seen any movie in the last 40 years, you've heard him play. He's done the Oscars for 30 years. Am I correct?
Yep.
And this man is on countless CDs and countless. The man has a resume. We could be here till Christmas and still not touch all the time. And it's just an honor and a privilege to have you here, Rick. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
I want to say this on behalf of all trumpet players. Thank you for everything you've done for trumpet players. Setting that bar so high. Yeah. So
it's
Rick,
my honor, believe me. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Rick, can you tell us how you got started? Can you tell us how you got the horn in your hand?
All right, this is a very interesting story, and I was born with asthma. I still have asthma to this day. All right, so I was in 5th grade, 10 years old, running around the track at gym, and my left lung collapsed. The doctors were able to save half of the lung, so this one doctor, Dr. Feldman, God bless him, he said, you should take up a wind instrument to build up your lungs. So, maybe you could have a normal life. If what we do is normal, it's cool, So anyway, so I, in 5th grade, back then, you could, it was banned, so you could go pick an instrument, right? So it just so happened that Sunday night we were watching the old Ed Sullivan show. And then it wasn't old, it was live. Anyway, and Harry James was on the show. And I said, wow, trumpet, that would be way cool, right? So I immediately ran. I think it was 2 weeks later, we had, you could go pick an instrument. I ran for the trumpet. My folks, God bless them, they went to, I grew up in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. They went to when they saw that I really, it was fun, and of course I sucked at the beginning, like of course everybody, but they gave, if you rented a horn from the San Lorenzo Music Center, you get 3 free lessons, right? And so that's what they did. They went and rented this old Busher. It was a used Busher trumpet. And whatever a mouthpiece had on it, I think, believe it or not, was a Parduba number 5 mouthpiece, which is what Harry James would play, right?
Wow.
And so I started that, and I think that I truly believe it was a God's gift that the trumpet came pretty easy to me. I mean, I practiced. My mom would make me practice an hour every day. And then after about a year on the horn, the teacher in San Lorenzo says, I'm sending you to a guy in Oakland, great trumpet teacher, Mr. Leo Demers, Demers. And so he started me playing really, I mean, I still have the lesson books, and he wanted me to be a legit trumpet player, a symphonic player. Mm-hmm. And so he started me on, like, in the first book, it was the Arbenz book and A trumpet, so down a half step and do that, and then C trumpet up a whole step, and D trumpet and transposition to get me to all do that, And so I played everything. I took every job there was out there. If it was a place on taps at a funeral, or a Chinese funeral, or a Portuguese Holy Ghost parade, or anything, I just played because I loved the trumpet. And it came, like I said, relatively easy. But I had great teachers. And so when I was about 14 years old, I was subbing in the San Francisco Symphony as well as the Oakland Symphony. But for me, the turnaround all came around was when in high school in sophomore year, we got a jazz band. And so I had just been listening to the legit stuff, but then with the jazz band, it was so cool. It opened up my listening to, Woody Herman, Count Basie, of course, with Snooky, and Maynard Ferguson and all those other bands. And that's when I knew this is what I wanted to do, was I wanted to. So I played all through high school, graduated high school. I got a scholarship to San Francisco State. I went 2 semesters and said, "Nah, this is not for me." And so I just started playing. I was in the original Raider band in Oakland, right? I played in the San Francisco 49er band. I played whenever the Ice Follies came into town, the circus came into town, anything that involved me playing my horn, that's what I did. I woke up, went to sleep dreaming about playing and getting better and working with great musicians. And so when I was 20 years old, there was a club in San Francisco called Mr. D's, and Bobby Darin was there for a whole week. The great Bobby Darin, right? Well, I was in the band playing first trumpet, and he liked my playing. And so his conductor, Bob Rosario, came to me and said, "Hey, Bobby wants you to come. We're going to go to Harrah's, Reno for 2 weeks. He wants you to come as his first trumpet player." And I said, "Well, I'm only 20. I lied. So I lied about my age, said I was 21 years old. I went up with there and I played with him up there. And in the band, it was a great band, George Hernandez's band. The guy playing second trumpet, who was actually the first trumpet player, but since they brought me in, was the great George Graham."
Oh, wow.
So that's where I first met George. I'm 21 years old. Actually, I was 20 years old. And I started up there in March of 1969. George had, I think it was a kidney problem or something. And so he had to take like 6 months off. So George Hernandez hired me and I stayed there. And for me, my dream was to come to Los Angeles and work in the studios, and mainly to work on the Oscars. That was my dream. I wanted to do that, but I knew I had to get better at what I did. So I stayed in Reno for 2 years at Harrah's Reno and played all the acts. The greatest act was, believe it or not, Bill Cosby came in and brought Dizzy Gillespie as his opening act. So I had the chance. George and I sat in the band with Dizzy out front, 1969, right? We hung with him, talked with him. The other fun one was Roy Rogers and Dale Evans. They came in. Their conductor was Rafael Mendez.
Oh, wow.
So here I am, a 20-year-old kid. I'm working these guys, it was amazing. And so when I finally left, I left Reno in 1971. I went to Las Vegas and worked in Vegas for 9 years, almost 8.5 years. I was first trumpet player on the relief band. And in Vegas, what that means is they had 11 hotels that had full house bands, 4 trumpet, 4 trombone, 5 saxes, strings, because all the acts that would come in, they would use the house band, right? And they would work, the acts had to work 7 days a week. Well, the house band could only work 6. So they had a relief band. So I was in the band and we played 6 different hotels every week. So for me, it was a great gig. I mean, I played every major act you could think of, from Elvis to Liberace and everybody, And so I stayed there and I knew that, for example, Nelson Riddle came into town, had a chance to play for Nelson Riddle. Peter Matz came into town with somebody. There was all these, all Don Costa came in conducting for Flip Wilson. So they all heard me play. And so about my last year and a half in town, when they would come into town, I would say, "Listen, I'm really thinking about coming to Los Angeles. Would it be okay if I gave you a call?" And they said yes. And that's how I got started in the studios. But that's the thing that right now is I was lucky to have that kind of opportunities to play. And that's the sad part for the younger guys like yourself. where are you going to go do that? You're going to go to Branson, Missouri? No, you got to be heard to play. You have to play, and you have to have opportunities to play. So I feel blessed in that situation.
Well, one thing I've heard is that a lot of the top LA studio pros went through that school of the relief band, like the Finleys, both Bob and Chuck.
Bobby, yeah, right.
Saunders.
Bobby, Chuck was there before I came to town.
Yeah.
Bobby Finley was the lead trumpet at Caesar's Palace.
Yeah.
The great Charlie Davis.
Yeah,
Charlie worked there. I mean, it was amazing the amount of players that came out of that town. And again, we were all there just having a good time in the 70s. I mean, really, it was a great town. You would work 8 o'clock show and then midnight show. And after the midnight show, you could go, everybody went to the Union where they had a bar, and that's rehearsal bands would start up at 2 o'clock in the morning. Oh, and wow. So you get a chance to hear Carl Fontana on trombone, and Bobby Shue was played there, and Chuck, and all these great players. It was a great proving ground.
Right.
And then all of us knew that, hey, it was time to move here. And we did. Chuck was the first one to get out of Dodge and come to Los Angeles. And of course, started working day one he got here, and he's still the best. Chuck's great.
Yeah. And one thing, let me ask you, I think what made you so successful in a demographic like Los Angeles is the fact that you were able to adapt, going through those shows and doing, because I mean, LA, you have to adapt. Let me ask you about your first day in LA. Rick moves to LA, now it's time to pay the mortgage on a really a nice house or whatever. And what was your first week in Los Angeles like?
My first week in Los Angeles was I called Peter Matz and his contractor, Joe Saldo. And I said, hey guys, I'm in town. I would, if you ever need a sub or anything. And that week, I forget who was it, maybe Tony Turan could not. And it was the last year of the Carol Burnett show, right? And Warren there, I had a chance to work with Warren, but and then I also made a phone call to Bob Florence when I came to town, and he immediately put me in his band. So now I'm in his band with the great Warren Looney and all these other players, And so my first week was, and it's hard to do, but it was like, hey, hi, this is Rick Baptist. Remember me? Young trumpet player Trophy. I'm in town, and I would really, I joined the union. And I have my card. And if you ever need a sub or anything like that, give me a call. Well, what happened was the way my name really got around real quick was Buddy Childers was Bob Florence's first trumpet player. And Buddy got ill or something. And so it was a job at some club, I forget, down by the beach. To play, and so I went in and sight read Bob Florence book, and in that band I had Warren Looney, I had Bernie Glow. Oh my God, what was his name? I can't think. There was other great trumpet players, but the guy that I impressed the most was Warren, just to come in and sight read Bob Florence band. And that was all because of that band that I worked on in Vegas, the relief band. We would go in and sight read anything, So I went in and played it. And from that time on, Warren started getting my name out there to the different contractors. And that's how I got started. And that was all the first week of myself being in town.
Wow. Rick, let me ask you a question. When you're like you said, you're probably in your mid-20s when you're in, or maybe
I was 28. Yes.
Yeah. So you're young man. You go into LA. I'm going to say this: you have the career almost every trumpet player dreams of having. Okay.
Well, that was what I dreamt too.
And
really,
and to be in a demographic like Los Angeles, where everybody has a name, everybody's played with everybody, and to set yourself apart. To make yourself stand out in a positive way, not bringing
right.
to do stuff like that. Let me ask you a question. Let's talk about, you did E.T. You work with John Williams.
Right. Yeah,
And
that
that
was
was
the fifth. That was the fifth movie I did when I moved to town.
right. And that's almost unheard of to just walk up the ladder that quick.
Well, again, it was word of mouth from Warren, Malcolm McNabb, from the other trumpet players, and um, yeah. So that's why I always try to help out the younger guys because they helped me out. One of the first big jobs I did, it was a big TV special for Helen Reddy, God rest her soul. She just passed away last week, right? And so she recommended me. The conductor was Lenny Stack. So he contacted the contractor and said, hey, Helen wants this trumpet player to come in. So I'm sitting, first trumpet, John Odino, the great John Odino, who was first trumpet player on The Tonight Show, and Bobby Bryant, who is, I mean, hey, I'm sure everybody out there knows Bobby Bryant. If you don't, his famous, Bobby played on everything. He was the first black musician who was on staff at NBC Orchestra. Yeah. Bobby was brilliant player, a great writer. But the main thing, my favorite solo was on Nat Cole's song called Love. It's called Love. And Bobby has a trumpet solo in that was just, it's amazing. Everybody has to get that record. Nat Cole, Love is the name of the song. And Bobby's solo, I could whistle the whole thing to you right now, Wow. But I think the thing that's most important, and a lot of people, and again, when I go out and speak to younger musicians, there's you have to, what we do is, the idea is when you sit in a band, they hire you to play the music the best you can, okay? You're gonna walk on, you're gonna walk in on a session, and you might not be the first trumpet player. You might be the second or third or fourth trumpet player. But if you're not going to play first, you be the best second, third, and fourth trumpet player. In other words, support that first player, support, because we're there for the music. We're not there to get famous. We're not there to get noticed. You could do that if you're playing first trumpet, and that's okay. You're going to get it. But if you're just going to be in the section, you be there to have a good time. And I think a lot of the other musicians, I think we've all probably been in a situation where you work with some other player that you personally feel, this guy's trying to bury me. He's playing, maybe overplaying. He might be, intentionally play out of tune to make you look bad. There's always going to be people out there like that. But I think if you're a straight shooter, you're one of the guys, you're fun to be around, and love what you do. That's how blessed are we that we can do something that we love doing and get paid for it. How cool is that? But it's, if you go back and think about it, a lot of guys, they will do, we're all insecure. Everybody is insecure. You have to be, Mm-hmm. But if, let's say, you have a leader that you work for a lot, and so let's say it's a big band, and you can't make a job coming up. You call them up and says, listen, I can't do the job. There's a situation came up. I can't do it, but I'll send a great sub. Now, that is the most important thing you could do, is what you do. And again, sometimes the insecurities, well, I'm not going to send the best player besides myself into sub because he might get my job. That's the wrong way to think about it. Think about what the leader would think. So, like for you, Joe, you're going to send in, let's say, Dan Fernero, right?
Yeah.
And Dan will go in and play a great job. The leader's going to say, wow, that was so cool that you had enough respect for this job and enough respect for me to send me a great trumpet player like that. That, in his eyes, makes you look even better.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So, that's the thing is, granted, we all have egos. We all do. but you have to check your ego at the door. You're not going to be the star all the time. You're just going to be one of the supporting players, but that's okay. You're still getting paid. You're still doing the job, and you're working, and you're making that camaraderie between the other players, you know? So when they get a job, and let's say, hey, can you put a trumpet section together? Well, yeah, I'm going to call so-and-so and Joe and about. So that's how you build up your credibility in town. But you also, I think, have to be a very versatile player. I think that's what helped me in town, was that I had that original training, legit training. But also the other thing is, and I've told a lot of people this, I've worked with the same 4 or 5 trumpets on 1,300 movies, you know. I mean, the same 4 or 5 guys. These are amazing, you know, Malcolm McNabb, genius, Warren Looning, John Lewis, you know, Dave Washburn. There's so many great trumpet players here. But we all, when we get together, we all understand. Doesn't matter who's playing first trumpet. If Malcolm's playing first trumpet and there's a big band chart comes up, boom, it's going to be on my stand, because he knows I eat that stuff for breakfast. Or if there's going to be a jazz, a Dixieland thing, they're going to give it to Warren. So we pass parts around. The conductor doesn't care. The contractor doesn't care. The main thing is that means all 4 of us, we can take care of anything that they put in front of us. That's all they care about. And for us, if I'm playing first and there's a real quiet, soft, naked solo that comes up, boom, I'm going to give it to Malcolm. I'm going to give it to John Lewis, you know, because those guys eat that stuff for lunch, you know. And even though if they weren't there, okay, I'd have to play it, but they're there. Why not let them do their thing too? And we did that on the Oscars for 30 years. And I learned that from John Odino, was you just pass it. Yeah, everybody needs to have fun.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter that, yeah, my name says I'm first trumpet. Yeah, it doesn't matter. You got to have fun.
Right.
I mean, Danny, you said you had talked to Dan Fornell, right? Dan and I, we did, you know, a few Oscars together. Everybody, doesn't matter what part you're playing, everybody's going to play something.
Right. I think to quote you, said a great lead player has a flexible wrist.
Exactly right. Yes.
So, and you know, to go back to what you were saying, you said, and a lot of young people don't grasp this, and I want you to kind of drive this home. The same, you see a lot of the same faces in the studios, and it's not because of their ability. It's what they don't do. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, it's what they do is you have to be consistent. Yeah. I mean, it's and the other thing is you have to be smart too.
Yeah.
Being smart, I mean, like when we would show up, at least in the studio situation, every one of us, Warren, Malcolm, everybody, myself, we would bring a case, you know, you pull behind you and with wheels that had 4 or 5 trumpets in it. Now, Malcolm chose to play 95% of the things he played on a Schilke E3 trumpet, E flat.
Wow.
Now, they didn't write the music for him. He's amazing. Yeah. He transposed everything. He never made a mistake. But like you said, I said, Malcolm, why do that? Why play it on E flat? He says, because if I'm going to make a mistake, I'd have to miss it by a 4th. But think about it. Right now, a lot of the guys in the studios play a lot of things. John Lewis plays everything on C trumpet. That's his comfortable feeling, right? I played everything on my Schilke B5, you know, but we always had other horns. We had not only your B flat trumpet, a C trumpet, you would bring a flugelhorn, you would bring a piccolo trumpet, you would bring a cornet. Okay, so we always had 5 horns, not because especially with the piccolo, you know, when they write high, when they want, you know, well, you know, you're in a room sitting right in front of us are 25 cellos. Over here are violas. They don't want you to play it like you're playing in a big band, but they want to hear those notes. So, man, with Malcolm, he would play it on the E flat. For me, the godsend for me was when Schilke, I love the Schilke P54 piccolo, but they made this P7 piccolo that has a little fatter sound. It doesn't have that quote toy trumpet sound. It's a
Yeah.
fatter sound. And so when they would write above the staff, you play it on the piccolo trumpet. We never made mistakes. You never heard mistakes because, as you know, if you have to play, when you go in the studios, you keep going and play it over and play it and over and over, time after time and again. And you know, after a couple hours, chops feel kind of weird. But if you could do it where you put one of these smaller horns in your and still get the same sound and consistency, that's why they kept hiring us. So you have to, you know, again, my ego would say, "Oh yeah, I could play this high G, no problem, all day long," you know. But after 4 hours or 3 hours in the studio with the red light on, yeah, it's kind of ugly. So play it on a horn you feel comfortable
Right. You know, and that's great advice. Also, too, Rick, one of the things I noticed a lot of, I want to say, misconception about the studio life in Los Angeles. You know, it is a pie that is diminishing as by the
about.
day.
Absolutely, yes, it is.
And
I'm sorry to say, but it
yeah,
is.
it is a pie that's diminishing, and there are plenty of qualified personnel.
Yeah,
Uh,
there is.
and you know, the thing is that you know, I've heard John Lewis talk about, hey man, I've been in LA since the '80s, you know, and like we're just barely now hearing about him, you know. I mean, but he's been there the whole time. The thing
Yeah,
is,
yes,
the thing is that you know, I think for a lot of people that have that ambition to go to Los Angeles or a demographic like that and to do that type of work, you
right.
know, it's not impossible, but there is a reality to it that, you know, you might not get to it right away.
That's
And
right.
what do you do in the meantime? I think that's a very vital piece of the puzzle that a lot of people miss.
That's true. Absolutely right. And what I tell a lot of, you know, right now I'm vice president of Local 47 of the union, right? And so we get, you know, we have orientation of new members, right? And so if I get the new members and no matter what instrument they play on, I always swear them in, right? You know, and then after that they come to my office and we sit down and I said, okay, what do you want to do in town? What kind of player? What kind of you do? And the thing that I tell everybody and is to be heard and to squash all the great teachers out there and all that. Sending a resume means nothing. Sending a resume to a contractor who is the one who does the hiring, that most of the times they look at it and boom, it goes right into the circular file because you can imagine they must get resumes all the time. So how do you get heard by the contractor? This is what I tell them. Whether you're playing violin, but flute, whatever instrument you're playing, you find out, and I tell them when I'm saying, okay, you're a violin player, all right, you need to contact these three different concert masters because the concert master in strings and the first trumpet player and the first French horn player and the first trombone player and the woodwind players, they're the ones, if they call the contractor and said, hey, there's this new player in town. So what I tell them to do is call up the number one player in the studio in whatever instrument they're on and ask them to take a lesson. That's all it is. Take a lesson. Because what happens when you take a lesson with somebody? First of all, they hear you play, but they also see what your personality's like. Are you going to fit in with the rest of the section, right? And if you impress that teacher, that might cost you 75, $100 for an hour, but they're going to hear you play. And then they could go to the contractor and said, hey, by the way, there's this new young player. This guy really plays great. You should put him on your list. I can't tell you how many times players know on every instrument started in town by doing it that way. You need to be heard. The other thing, the stories I always tell is that whenever you play, whenever you put that instrument to your lip, you play the best you can. if it's a concert or a Latin gig or a football game or whatever, because you never know who's going to be in the audience to hear you play. And my favorite story to tell, I was playing with this, it was a casual, I'd come to town. It was a Saturday night gig with one of the older bands in town, you know, a bunch of great older guys. And it was cool. I stood up and played, you know, a little Cherry Pink, Apple Blossom, what, you know, whatever, a solo on Tenderly, solo on Stardust. And after the job, I was packing up, and a gentleman, older gentleman, came up to me, and he says, "I just want you. Do you have a card?" He says, "I really enjoyed your playing." I said, "Oh, thank you, sir." That's the other thing, by the way. The cheapest form of advertising you could have is get a card. So this is it. So the gentleman says, "Do you have a card?" I said, "Yes, sir." He says, "My name is David Rose." Now, at the time, David Rose was scoring Highway to Heaven, right? The TV show. He says, I'm gonna give your card to my contractor." A week later, I got a phone call from the contractor to work on a session with David Rose. Now, he was just in the audience and liked the way I played. And if I didn't have that card with my name on it, the instrument, and how you could get a hold of me, you know, you write it on a napkin, he's going to lose that.
Yeah.
So, guys, please spend $12, get a card, because you never know who's you're going to hear play. In church, same
and even
thing.
now, right? And even
now, it's so important. You never know. You play in church, right? And there's always musicians out there, and if they like what they hear, give them your card. And then from there, it's up to them, and they will do that, because we're always looking for great players. Always.
You know, I've heard a lot of your peers, and I'll say it takes a very special person to do what you guys do. And that, I mean, not, I mean, all ability put aside, but it takes a special person. You know, a lot of people, and knowing the word appropriate, I think Danny Fernero said that, knowing what the word appropriate means in all sense of the word is like your best friend. What is appropriate, you know? And let me ask you a question. You've been very successful in the studio world in Los Angeles, and you know you are undoubtedly one of the best players in the world. You know, undoubtedly, and you're around that a lot. You're around that those type of players like Malcolm and, you know, Wayne.
Love it, yeah,
yeah. And so let me ask you a question. When you're around those type of people, and you say you know, how does that make you in your experience, how did that make you a better player every time you went back into the studio? Like when you said, like I saw, I heard about the Soldier scoring session that you guys did.
right.
That was a great session from what I heard. And
Absolutely.
you really did an amazing job. There was like 4 brass sections all at once or
Exactly,
something.
yeah.
Yeah. And so, you know, like, again, you're already this very top echelon type player, and then you just keep getting better and better. But what is it that you took from every session, every gig, that kind of made you that better player? You know what?
Just the fact that I'm surrounding I'm blessed. Number one, that's the important thing, is you're blessed to be there in this situation. All right. And that means the conductor, the composer requested you, the contractor hired you, all these other musicians are relying on you to play your best at all times. That's all. It's just a matter of trying to play. Now, granted, there is times when maybe, you know, you got a fever, you don't feel good, you know, but I think the main thing is that you have to be ready for everything. Anything that they put in front of you. You know, there's a great trumpet player who was first trumpet player for like 25 years in the LA Phil. His name's Tommy Stevens.
Oh
He
yeah.
was a great trumpet player. I mean, this guy can play anything. He hated working in the studios. I said, Tommy, why do you hate? You know, we did, when you hear the John Williams, that was Malcolm and Warren and myself and Tom Stevens and Graham Young and Tony Turan, you know, and Warren Looney. that was us on that. And I said, Tommy, didn't you have fun doing that? He says, well, yeah, that was fun. He says, but all the other sessions you guys go into, you have no idea what you're going to play. I said, yeah, that's the best part. We have no idea what we're going to play. And he says, I hate that at the LA Phil, I know a year ahead of time what concerts we're going to be doing. I said, frankly, that would be a pain in the ass for me, because if I knew I had to play Petrushka 8 months from now, I'd start worrying about it now. But for us, you walk into the session and you usually get, and this is really important, and I want to make sure that everybody understands this part of it. What Dan Fernero said about what was the word you used? He used,
He takes a very special person and use the word appropriate.
Appropriate. Okay. So when you show up at the studio, you will probably see the majority of the musicians there an hour ahead of time. Now, mind you, they don't put the music on the stand till probably 20 minutes before the downbeat. But we're there because that's when you get a chance to hang with the guys. You stand around the coffee table and the bagel table, and you laugh and you joke. And, that's, even though I'm working with these guys every day, maybe 2 or 3 times a day, but still, that's the hang part. That's the part that is so important. Playing on top of it, yeah, you got to play. But you also have to be one of the guys. You got to be, and that we look so forward to that. And then at lunch, when they break for the 1-hour lunch, the trumpet section all left that stage and ate at the same table for lunch on every session. And I tell people, you know why we do that? Because if you're not there, you're the one we're talking about. Which is, but yeah, but the thing is that you surround, you are, I always feel bad for string players who, they only know what their concertmaster's doing, and the focus is there and they're playing great. But then you hear these amazing woodwind players and amazing percussion and French horns and every other instrument you can think of at the top of their game. Yeah. You have to be at the top of your game. And so when you go to work, yeah, you're right. I have no idea what they're going to put in front of us. But I also, in my heart, know that I'm working with other guys, that if it's something that I didn't feel comfortable about, the wrist. Mm-hmm. Because the music is the important thing, not you being famous, the music, playing the music the best you can.
Yeah. Rick, I got 1,000,005 questions, so let me get to them right now.
Listen, I'm good for as long as you want. Go for it.
I got 1,000,000 they're just pouring in. So I'll just ask the first one. This is from David from Cleveland. David asked, hi, Rick. I love the movie stuff you've done over the years. Thank you so much for the awesome example. Why did you choose Shoki, and what did you play before then?
Okay. Again, my teacher, Leo Demers in Oakland, had a very, very tight deal with Eldon Binge. And so he started me off on a Binge 5X with a Bach 1C mouthpiece. And so I played that. And then when we got the big band, like I said, in my sophomore year, I realized that number one, the 1C Bach mouthpiece was not going to work playing high Ds and high Es and all that. So I went to a 3C mouthpiece. And my very dear friend had a Shoki B5 that was made in 1964, and he let me play it, and I fell in love with that horn. And I actually traded him for my Binge 5X. I traded him for my Shoki, and so the reason I love the Shoki, especially the B5, is I really feel that it's the most versatile trumpet that they make. You could do it you could play any style. You could play mariachi, you could play any style you want to play. And that's why I love Shoki.
Oh, wow. That's great. This is from Alvin. Alvin's from Chicago. Alvin asked, is there any scoring session that was complete and utter terror for you to play?
Interesting that you actually said those words. And this is, there was a woodwind player who got interviewed one time, and he said, "Hey, what's it like to be a studio musician?" And the guy says, "Well, it's about 95%, no, 90%, 90%. Let's see, wait a minute. How did it go? Wait, hang on. It worked out to be, yeah, 90% sheer pleasure, 10% sheer, what was the word you said?
Terror.
Terror, right. And that pretty much works it out. So in answer to the question, I think probably, yeah, there's been a couple of movies that you're hanging on by, but again, you're surrounded by amazing players. So, I had enough confidence in myself that when I showed up, I was ready for anything they could play. And again, you always pull it off. You have to. You dig deeper. You find something in yourself that, and a lot of times, whenever there was things that were probably unplayable, it wasn't because we couldn't feel it. It was the composer who wrote it really ridiculous. And then so now, what do you do in that situation? Well, then you have to try to fix it to make it playable, because that's all they care about. The other 100 people sitting there, they don't want to hear that you're having trouble. So you find a way to fix it. And again, if that means you take you maybe get it off your chops for a little bit, you take liberties as far as rests or anything like that, again, I would immediately, if it was something ridiculous all over the horn, yeah, I would play it on like the piccolo, or pull another horn that's going to lay easier on. So um, actually, for me and Warren, the one movie that I do remember, and it was a movie that Danny Elfman wrote, and the movie is called Summersby, and Malcolm McNabb was the first trumpet player. Mm-hmm. And this will answer to your Malcolm. In this movie, he had these solos that were literally octave lip slurs. Da 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 da, and when normal player would play it, you hit a lot of the notes in between going up, Malcolm played it perfect. And at the end of that session, Warren Looney and I are walking out to the parking lot to get to our cars, and we both said, "Holy shit, are we glad Malcolm was here today?" Because it was the most spectacular thing I've heard anybody do. And we knew how hard it was, and he pulled it off, and granted, yeah, there was some things that we all were able to do and pull off and make it work. And but as far as, it's just, I wouldn't let myself be taken down by something like that. So I made it a challenge. I challenged myself. You're right. This is almost unplayable, but I'm going to play it.
Yeah.
And that's all you can do, Jim. That's all you can do, is try to dig a little deeper and try to make it work. That's all. Make it work.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. I got another question from Randy from Philadelphia. He says, doing the Oscars and the Academy Awards, does the orchestra know the winner before it's announced?
No, absolutely not.
How does that work then?
Well, how that works is when you sit down, again, all these guys, I in my trumpet section for 25 of the 30 years I did it, it was myself, it was Warren Looney, George Graham, and then Wayne replaced George Graham, and Bobby Finley, who's Chuck Finley's brother. And we all had played it we had done it a lot of years. So in Academy Award, in those 3.5, 4 hours, live to the world, billion people, you have 125 different starts.
Wow.
All right. So you just and on the I wish I had the music here. I don't. I saved a lot of music. So let's say the category best film. All right. There is you have 3 pages, and there's a one cue here, one film here, one film here, one film here, one film, and one film here. 5 different films. All right. So we're sitting in the pit, and on the music it says, okay, the name of the movie, and whatever they're going to read on the thing, like it's probably okay, Fox Film or whatever, so we have it. So everybody's there, we hear live, because we're there. They say and the winner is, and whatever the winner is, you have 3 seconds to find that one piece of music, put your horn up, and the conductor goes like this. That's for the whole orchestra. That's how good that orchestra is. So
Wow.
we do not know ahead of time. And answer your question, we've never known ahead of time who was going to win. Now, in our own minds, oh yeah, well, I'm sure John Williams might win this one, or James Horner might win this. So your eye goes to okay, so it's possible between number 1 and number 5. All right. So you're ready. Okay, number 1, number 5. And they say, and the winner is number 5. Boom. You're ready to play. That's it. But
Oh,
in answer to your question, no, we never know on any of the shows.
so here's a question that me and like a bunch of my college buddies have. Um, we grew up watching Animaniacs, and we
All
grew up
right.
watching Batman, the animated series, and those
Perfect.
orchestras were outstanding. Can you ask me what was the music like? What was for stuff like Animaniacs? Because it sounded like it was just the most. It was super fun, but I mean, it sounded extremely difficult. That stuff sounds.
It was extremely difficult, and it was so much fun. The leader, Richard Stone, was a leader because growing up, I listened to the Looney Tune cartoons in the 40s, right? And man, I said, oh, one day I want to play cartoons. And in 1990, they started Tiny Toons, and then Animaniacs and Pinky and the Brain and all those cartoons. And so we actually used the same size orchestra that they had in 40 for Carl Stallings, right? So we had 3 trumpets, 3 trombones, 6 woodwinds, eight violins, 2 violas, 2 cellos, 1 bass, a piano, percussion player, and drummer. That was it. So that orchestra, we would do these cartoons, probably 2 cartoons a week, and it was written just like the Carl Stallings cartoons. It was amazing. It was that orchestra again, that group of musicians were so fantastic, and everybody understood the styles. Alan Kaplan on trombone, playing all the great things. For me, I got so into it. Now check this out. I got so into it in that trying to get the best possible harmonium wah sound or sound, that I went through probably 15 different harmoniums, and I ended up with a copper Joral,
Mhm.
right, that had some dents in it, right. So when I would play, I realized that did a wah, and oh, that was, yeah, and I could hear in the sound that it bounced around off the dance. So I put a piece of tape on the top of the harmonium, so I would put it in my bell the exact same way every time, so I could get that sound. I mean, that's how crazy I got about it. And Alan Kaplan actually did a he wrote like a funny book on called The Art of Wah, you know but
Yeah.
yeah, it's it was an amazing thing. Again, going in with all these amazing musicians who were at the top of their game. We were all at the top of our game to play that music. And I played probably 5,000 cartoons.
Wow.
Everything like you said, from the Batman and Robin. That was Malcolm and I on most of those,
Yeah.
and then all the Disney cartoons from Buzz Lightyear
Yeah.
and Gargoyles. And I mean, there's ridiculous. I love cartoon music. it's so fun to play, and yeah, it was to me, and the other thing I love about that is now I have grandkids, and
Mhm.
I know that my grandkids know that Papa played on those movies. I love that.
That's so
I
cool.
also did when you listen to Family Guy, I did all the Family Guys, right? And when you listen to the main title on Family Guy, that's me on all four trumpet parts. That's Alan Kaplan on all four trombones, and Dan Higgins played all five saxes. So Walter Murphy called us and he said, "Hey, we got this new cartoon show. It's called Family Guy." And we went over to his house and we recorded the main title. And
Mhm.
there was this young guy just sitting there, ended up to be, I mean, it was just so much fun. So when you listen to that main title, that's me on all four trumpet parts. And so that's why it sounds so perfect. I started with the fourth part and then put second part and then third part
Yeah.
and then the first trumpet part.
Oh
But
wow.
it's fun. I love cartoons.
Yeah,
Those are
and
the best.
like I said, we grew up watching. I mean, I did. Me and all my college buddies, and we're like, "Who is that?" When we asked our professor, "Who's that?" He's like, "It's Rip Dad Baptist," and I was like,
Yeah.
"He's doing all those, wow." And
You know,
so,
I'm thrilled to say I played on the first 14, every 14, first 14 Pixar movies.
yeah,
And the one on Facebook, the one I keep hearing from the most musicians, trumpet players around the world, is Incredibles. All
Incredibles.
right.
Yeah,
And I mean, I just a couple of weeks ago, I heard from this young trumpet player from Bopu Tatswan, South Africa.
yeah.
Oh, Mr. Baptist, you're my favorite trumpet player because you played on the first trumpet on the Incredibles. And the reason was on the DVD, they showed us, there was a thing that said music, right? And they showed us actually playing. And you could see myself and then Wayne over here. And so it was, I love that kind of thing, that music. It was such a thrill to play that. And um,
Yeah, you guys sound amazing on that thing,
it
and
was pretty amazing.
and
And
you
that was
guys,
Michael Giacchino's first movie.
yeah,
They actually wanted John Barry originally was hired to do the music for that because they wanted it a la James Bond.
right,
And Michael was just amazing. And
wow,
he gave us so much freedom. That's what I love about working with Michael Giacchino was because he allowed us to uh, to add some of our own inflections to the music. And for me, I don't know how to write music, but if you write something, I will try to put some of my personality into it to make it sound a little better. And Michael always allowed us to do that. And a perfect example is on the movie Up,
hmm,
right? Great Pixar movie. Through that whole movie, I have all these trumpet solos, tons of them, right? And so Michael Giacchino had originally written the solos to be with a straight mute. And so I played it a couple times and I just didn't think that sound, it was a tinny sound and it didn't work with the rest of the music. So I raised my hand, to Tim Simonak, the conductor, and Michael in the booth. I says, "Can we try one more? I got an idea." And they were very cool about letting us, if we had an idea, they wanted to hear about it. And so I had this old 1938 solotone mute that Manning Klein gave to me, right? The great Manning Klein. And so I put the solotone mute in. And as you know, the solotone mute has like a nice, warm kind of sound, right? And a little quirky sound, but a nice sound. And so they let us do one more take, and I put the solo tone mute in, and I played it. And when the red light went off, I saw Michael Giacchino and the director Pete Docter come out of the booth and worm their way through the orchestra, and they all got on either side of me and gave me a kiss on the cheek and said, "Oh, that's the sound we wanted." So for me, I love that
yeah,
that they allowed me to do that. I have been shut down a few times when you make suggestions,
yeah,
but at least there was some, and that was one of the situations I was very proud of. And Michael got an Academy Award for
yeah.
that score for Up. Yeah,
Um, I got another question here, and we had talked about this beforehand.
yeah,
So there's a YouTube video out with
yeah.
you and the Mount Rushmore of trumpet sections, and you guys are
Yes, it
scoring
was.
Rocky Balboa.
Right.
And Pete Conde is the conductor, and
Yeah. Bill. Yeah.
I is there, and
Right.
and he stops the band and he approaches the trumpet section.
So
And
let me set the whole thing up.
go for it. Yes.
All right. So I had 9 horses. I mean, unbelievable. There was 9 trumpets. There were 6 trombones, 2 French horn, 2 tubas, 12 French horns at Fox scoring stage, and all the string players in front of us. Right. Well, we had recorded. And it was the theme. We did the whole movie, but the theme, bum bum ba dum ba dum ba, right, that whole thing. And so we recorded it with 6 trumpet players at Capitol Studios about a week ahead of. And Bill Conti called me. He says, "Rick," he says, "Sly heard it. He said it wasn't big enough. I need more power, you know." And I said, "Well," and so we got the 9 trumpets, the 9 horses, you know, and we re-recorded it at Fox. And then Bill came to me on one of the breaks. He says, "Listen, Sly's here. Can you come into the booth and help me sell this to him?" Because apparently, you know, Sly was, he was a little tough at that time, right?
Yeah.
Now I'd done 2, 3, and 4, and went 5, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we call Rock Balboa 6.
Yeah.
Worked with it, but so I went in the booth, and he said, "Okay, let me hear it," you know, and they turned it up. It was so loud. I mean, people were like leaving the booth. It was so loud. I think Sly's deaf. Anyway, he says to Bill, he says, "You know, Bill," he says, "the problem is, you know, I'm 60 years old in this movie, and this is like Popeye. This is my spinach. I need to have that fight." And I said so Bill's looking at me like, "Help." And so I said, "Sly," I said, "Listen, I got an idea. Why don't you come out and stand in front of the brass section? And I think at that point, you'll see the kind of power that really we're doing for you." And Bill's going like this, you know. And so I walked out. Now I walked out in front of him, and I got up in front of him, and I said to all the brass section, I said, "Guys, play as loud as you can and aim at his head," right? Because I knew he was getting. So you saw he was only like 6 feet away, right? And so we said, "Okay, guys, we're going to do it." And he said, "Okay," and you know, "All right, go," you know. And so he's standing there, and I counted off. Bump, bump, and it was so loud. The string players like ducking for cover. It was so loud, and he never flinched. It was ridiculous. He never flinched. And so after about 15 bars, we blew ourselves out, everybody, you know. And so I said, "Well, Sly, what do you think?" He said, "Well, you know, Rick," he says, "really, I just, you know, you got to understand, I'm 60 years old at this thing, and this, you got to." I said, "Well, sir, the only thing I could think of doing would be we could double track it." And he says, "Well, what does that mean?" I said, "Well, in other words, instead of just have 9 trumpets, we'd have 18 trumpets and 12 trombones and 4 tubas." And he says, "Oh, okay, let's do that." You know, now I was a hero to all my guys, because when you double track, that means we get double pay, right? So the guys say, "Yeah, Rick, we love you," you know. But that's what we did, and we did it, and we double tracked it. So that's what you heard on the thing, because that was the only way to make him understand the power. I mean, I think he understood the power, but he never flinched when we hit him with those first 4 notes. And man, he never flinched. And at that point, it's like, well, what are we going to do now? Just gotta, you know, tap dance, you know, and we'll try to figure out what to do, you know. But that, I love that, and I didn't know that somebody in the back was taping that, so that was so cool. I love that.
Well, when I saw that, and me and a lot of other trumpet players saw that, we go, "This guy knows what he's doing." I mean, to approach Sly and to get him to agree, you know, that's amazing. I got to get to some of these questions, Rick. Sorry.
Okay, go. Yeah, absolutely.
Here's another one. Rick. Okay. This was in Spanish. I'm translating. Give me a second. Okay. Rick, tell me about the most difficult situation you had as a lead trumpet player, and what did you do to overcome that?
Okay. You know, the job that I did for 17 seasons was Dancing with the Stars, right? Hopefully there was people out there who watched that show. It was an amazing band. It was 2 hours live every week, right? And there was some really amazing hard stuff to play. But I think of all the things that I really had to Step It Up. There is a movie that I did with Bill Conti that Bill Conti wrote, and it was called. Oh my gosh! Come on, Rick. It was the title got changed to Bound by Honor,
Yeah.
but the original title was oh, what the hell was the original title? Isn't that pitiful?
It's okay, Rick.
Uh, anyway, I just there's so many things that I'm really so proud of that what I did to nail it down to just one. Um, I think I just think uh yeah, that's a tough one. And and the other thing while we're on it, talk about us being unsung heroes, like I said, I worked on 1,300 motion pictures. I've had my name on maybe 50. Now, believe it or not, that's a lot. But now, we've always been fighting for screen credits. All right. And thank God for Facebook, that people, they'll say, hey, who played the Oscars? Who did this? That's how we got our names out there was Facebook. But now I was very much involved on the new motion picture contract that went into effect May of this year. That finally, after fighting for since the 80s to try to get musicians' name on the crawl, the end crawl of the movie. Now they've got a million names that are on there. In the 80s, the music is always the last thing that goes on the movie before it comes out. All right. So that's what they're saying. Well, we can't put your names up there because, we've already got the length of the thing, but now they can't say that because they hit a button and like 200 names can be on the crawl. Right.
Yeah.
So at least now it's in the contract that anybody who works on a major motion picture or a picture for television, their names will be on the crawl. And I feel really, really good about that. Same thing on the Oscars. The last 4 years, the Oscars have been putting every musician who plays in a show on their crawl. And that was because I went to the executive producer, Rob Payne. I said, Rob, I'm vice president and I did this for 30 years, but now I'm really fighting to get the musician's name. And he says, Rick, there's a lot of names on the crawl that shouldn't be there, but the musician should be. And he, in front of me, picked up the phone, called the Academy and said, I'm sending over 55 musicians' names plus copyists and orchestrators, and it went on the crawl. So I feel real good about those things, But when you look at Malcolm McNabb, who's played on over 2,000 movies, like Dancing with Wolves.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, but nobody knew it was him because his name's not anywhere on it. It's crazy. It's crazy. And so now at least the guys, we're going to get some credits. So that's good.
That is good. And let me ask you. So guys, I'm getting to these questions as fast as I can. Give me a second.
I'll shorten up my answers.
No, you're good. You're good, Rick. Rick, I just want to say this, guys. This is your opportunity. Think of Rick as this library, and this is your chance to ask the book a question. So, and I think that's what everyone sees this as. You have this wealth of knowledge of all these wonderful experiences that we only dream of having. And now I'm seeing, I got at least 50 questions, but I'm going to try to narrow them down.
Cool. All right.
But, so I got another question from Adam. Adam, he says, what was it like working with John Williams?
It's the best. There's nobody out there. I think people ask me who my favorite composer is. And John, of course, is probably number one. Number two, my number one for me is Jerry Goldsmith. But John, when you go in and work for John Williams, you know that he is the best at what he does in that position. He knows every instrument. He knows every player. He's writing specifically for a lot of players. He really is. And so to work with him It's a thrill. And when you do any of the Star Wars or you know, like I say, we did E.T. and on the other one is Jaws.
Yeah.
Malcolm McNabb has cornet solos through the whole thing. Nobody knew he played it. Nobody, you know. But anyway, doing all those other Hook and all these other movies with John, Steven Spielberg was always walking around with a video camera and video each guy in the orchestra. So one day, hopefully, all that video camera will come out and you'll be able to see everybody. But to work with John, he's the best, period. He's amazing. He respects you, he respects the musician. He stands up there and says, "Thank you for what you did for my movie." We don't get it, we don't hear it that often. But when people like that, again, all the Pixar, the producers and everybody, I mean, all the producers and directors on Pixar, they appreciate the music so much that they actually film us. They have cameras up there and film us while we're recording the music and send it back to their main headquarters so that all the animators that worked on it for 3 to 5 years can see us what we do. That's how much they appreciate. So it's just a matter of being appreciated. But yes, John Williams, he's the best. There's nobody,
Oh wow.
nobody like him.
So I got another question. This is from Bob. He says, I've heard this too. I didn't know this was a thing. So he says, Rick, I've heard that studio musicians, if you go to LA, you have to have an 818 area code or live in the 818 area code. Is that still true to this day?
Wait. Say that one again.
Okay, Bob said this. He goes, I heard if you're going to be a studio musician in Los Angeles, you have to have an 818 number and live in an 818 area code. Is that still true to this day?
No, that's BS.
Okay.
And to show you, yeah, that's not true. It was never true, really.
Okay.
That was never true. I mean, hey, I had a pager because I was always afraid that my phone was going to go off. And we had guys, their phones go off in the middle of session. And if that happened, everybody would say unemployment office because, you know, you would ruin takes. So I had a pager. If it vibrated, I knew I was getting a call. But yeah, no, that's not true.
Okay. Yeah, because I heard that somewhere and I thought that doesn't sound right. Okay.
No.
So here's another one. This is from Marty. Marty's from Seattle. Marty asks, oh, Rick, was there ever a time where you thought, hey, this isn't for me?
No. I always said from the day I started playing and playing is that when it stops being fun, that's when I quit. And so 6 years ago, when I was asked to become vice president of the Musicians Union. And being a title officer means you can't work anymore.
Yeah.
So I had to put my horn down. And so I, you know, and right before that, 7 months before I was asked to run, we were doing Dancing with the Stars, and they got rid of the big band, and they brought in records and you know, and a smaller band because we loved doing that job so much. It was so much fun. It was great musicians, so much fun. It was totally live, and the eye candy wasn't too bad either.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, but so when that went away, I was just pretty much working in the studios. And at that time, you know, it was like there was a lot of there was a situation where the number one contractor was not working anymore. A new contractor came in, and there started to be a little bit of guys worrying about, you know, if they were going to be playing anymore in the studios. Because if this one contractor, the new contractor, if he didn't know you or whatever, he had his own list, you're going to be out. So I figured, you know what? I've done everything I ever dreamt of as a trumpet player in my life. And this opportunity came up for me to become vice president, and I took it and I loved it. And it's really great because I feel that I'm able to help my musician friends and hopefully inspire. That's all.
Okay, cool. I got this is my question for you. Like I said, you know, I got to talk to Mick Gillette, and he told me one time that in his opinion, he thought you were the best lead trumpet player he's ever heard. And I agree with that. You're a very fine lead trumpet player. He says, ask him about the Joan Rivers show when you ever get a chance to talk to Rick. He says, ask him about the night that apparently Joan's husband had, did something tragic. It was a tragic night, and they thought the show wasn't going to go on. Apparently, that was a big night. He said, ask him about that. There was a weird.
I'm trying to, yeah, I mean, it was, we really, that was so much fun.
Yeah.
To do that show. It was Joan Rivers, it was 1980, 85, 86
Yeah.
when we did those shows. It was actually, I got a phone call from John Odino, and John said, Rick, I heard that there's going to be a big band on the Joan Rivers show. And he says, I hope you guys knock it out of the park. I mean, to me, I thought that was the classiest thing, because here we were going to go right up against them. She was right up Carson, and Aldino called and said that, but yeah, I think what he's referring to, what Mick was referring to, was she, her husband, Edgar, who was the executive producer, he died, and she came in and she said she wasn't sure that she would be able to do the show, and the band leader was Mark Hudson. And so all of us, I just kind of got everybody all together, and we all huddled together and told her and made sure she understood we were all with her, whatever. But the main thing was that we I think we did some kind of a tribute for her husband. I'm almost, if that's the story he's thinking of, yeah.
And again,
and that was just something that we didn't tell the director, we didn't tell anybody. I told Mark, it was like the whole brass section and the whole band. We all got together and we just did something, and we literally took over the show for that 5 minutes and did a tribute for Edgar, But, it was on that show was so cool because I had a chance to hear Sal Cracchiola. Have you had a chance to talk to Sal? Sal is now playing on Tower, along with Adolfo Acosta, who's great, another great trumpet player. Sal's a great guy and a great trumpet player, and I'm so proud of him, But with Mick, we grew up together along with Greg and the Bay Area, and that was such a loss. And I had seen Mick at the NAMM show like right before then, and we had a chance to talk. And I again, growing up in the Bay Area, I did a lot of rehearsal bands with the great John Faddis, number one player in New York, right? And John would always come in with his Dizzy Gillespie's T-shirt and the horn that he bent up himself. And what a player! Even as a young guy, what a player! Amazing,
it just, and there was some hip music on that show too, on the Joan Rivers.
Oh yeah, we got a chance.
There was some hip stuff, man.
Yeah, it was so great. It was so fun. And live, I love live, and had the great Vinny Cayuta on drums. I mean, there were so many stars in that band, Bob Shepard on sax. And I mean, it was amazing, the players.
Yeah. The trumpet session was you, Ray Brown, and who else?
And Doug Scharf.
Okay, Doug Scharf.
And Doug Scharf was a friend of Randy Wallman, piano player from Chicago. And Doug, in fact, you could see Doug Scharf every Saturday night on channel 56. There's a show. In fact, I just watched it last night. It's the corniest. It's called Svengoolie. Okay. And what he does, he shows these old movies. But Doug is the one who's playing piano and making up the songs with him. And last night he got featured on trumpet. But yeah, there's great the trombones are Alan Kaplan and Lou McQuarrie, and I mean it was amazing. Jimmy Johnson on bass, and it's just an amazing band, and we did that for 2 years, two and a
Yeah.
half years. And then Arsenio took over and we did it for him for a little while. And then just went on to other things, you
All
know.
right. As they do, right? They go on to other things. Rick, I got this. This is a really good question. Uh, this is from his name is Patrick. He's out of New York City. He's a good friend of mine. He asks, day in and day out, Rick, you sit with the best in the world. Day in and day out, you sit with the best in the world. And what was the thing? Who did you learn the most from sitting in the trumpet section? Who was the person that you sat next to that you learned the most from?
Good question. Good question. And let's see. As far as playing live trumpet and live TV shows and stuff, like the Oscars and all that, John Ardino was the best. I mean, he was rock solid, great sound, played everything. As far as motion picture, hands down, Malcolm McNabb, the greatest motion picture trumpet player ever. And that's even, I mean, I love you on Racy and you on when you hear all the old MGM movies and American in Paris, that's you on. But for consistent to play anything, Malcolm McNabb, I learned what to do, how to just do it right every time. And I still think, as far as trumpet players go, Warren Looney, the best all-around trumpet player I think there ever was, ever. Warren, God rest his soul. Warren could play anything, any style. He was first trumpet player in the Hollywood Bowl Orchestra. He could play big bands. He played, he did the amazing. He could imitate Harry James. He could, as playing styles, Louis Armstrong. We were doing a Clint Eastwood movie, right? And Clint came back to us and he said, "Hey, Rick," and he says, which one of you guys will do the Louis Armstrong thing? I said, "Warren, yeah." And so Warren says, Clint says, "Okay," he says, "I want you to do Louis Armstrong." And Warren said it loud enough so most of the people in the area heard it. Warren said, "What year?"
Oh,
And
wow.
Clint kind of looked at him and said, 1938. And Warren said, "Okay, you got it." I mean, that's, people in the orchestra said, "Oh, what an asshole thing to say." No, it wasn't. Because as we all know, Satch sounded different over the decades, right? And so when Clint says this is 1938, boom, and Warren nailed it. So Warren, hands down, the best all-around trumpet player that there ever was that worked in the studio. He was brilliant. And we're talking about studios in Los Angeles where they had, like on all the original cartoons, the Looney Tunes cartoons, that trumpet player, his man, my brain is just Larry Sullivan. Larry Sullivan played all those. They had every Fox orchestra had John Kleiman as their first. Yuan was first trumpet player at Sony. I mean, at MGM.
Yeah.
For all those great movies. I mean, there was some amazing players that I was blessed to get a chance to hear and work with some of them. Manny Klein, Cappy Lewis, and all you do, and Connie Condoli and Pete Condoli brothers and brothers Condoli, you just try to take everything you can from them and put your own little spin on it, But yeah, as far as influential players for motion pictures, I have to say it'd be Malcolm.
Right. Right. Yeah, you're right. He's amazing. And
yeah, he's really amazing.
Here's a question, and I don't know. Again, forgive me. This is I don't know if this guy did his research, but just yeah or nay on this one. Rick, I understand you're on the Seth MacFarlane big band sessions, which were done live, which is unheard of at this point in time. That
Right.
must be bone chilling. How did you get through it? Meaning
again, it's I think if you think about it, that it is live, that you'll drive yourself nuts. And this is my one explanation. I really don't get nervous because I feel comfortable about what I'm doing. I feel comfortable with who's with me, around me, and in the situation. But there was one time, and this is what the brain can ruin you. We were doing the Oscars, and the movie that got nominated, and a song was nominated from it, is Mambo Kings, which the great Arturo Sandoval played all the solos in the movie, right? Well, this song was called "Beautiful Maria," and so that was nominated for the best song. So Bill Conti called me. He says, "Rick," he says, "listen, Placido Domingo is going to come and sing the song. Sheila E. is going to play conga, and we need you to do the Arturo Sandoval stuff next to him." I said, "Wow, cool. That's fun." And so we rehearsed it, and Placido was amazing, and I got to do my thing, rehearsals, and then show day. I started the show, was in the pit, started for the first hours, played all the stuff, and then the stage hands come down, and they take me to go up to the stage to stand next to Placido, and they put these ruffle sleeves on my coat, and I'm ready to play, and just then Placido looks at me. He says, "Rick, is it true we're going live to 1 billion people?" And I said, "Oh, yes, sir." Like, duh, yeah. And he said, "Geez, I'm a little nervous." And as soon as he said that, my knees started to shake.
Oh, wow.
Because I thought, holy shit, wait a minute. The great Placido Domingo is nervous. Why am I not nervous? But then once we were ready to go and I put the horn in my mouth, I was cool. But that's what the head goes through. I've heard so many people having troubles with nervousness. I think we've all been there. And I think 90% of the time, if it's just the insecurity that you have in yourself. Oh, well, or you talk yourself into making a mistake. You talk yourself. So my attitude always was, you know what? I have so much pride in my playing and what I can do. I'm not going to make a mistake today. I'm not going to do it. And once I, get my brain set like that, then I'm okay. So you can't, when you get nervous, a lot of times it's because you're not prepared. You didn't warm up properly, whatever reason. You didn't feel comfortable about what you're going to play. No, you have to be totally prepared to do whatever they ask you to do. If you are, you're not going to get nervous. I'm sure when you played, you've gotten nervous, or you looked out and they're sitting ringside is the great, Arturo Sandoval sitting right there, and you're getting ready to play a solo. Well, you're going to psych yourself out and you're going to sound like crap. So what you do is you keep telling yourself, you know what? I'm going to show him that I could do this. I'm going to show myself that I could show him this. So you have to be secure in what you do, and don't put yourself on a limb and try to do something you're not comfortable with. I've said no many times to jobs when I didn't feel comfortable, that they wanted me to come in and play jazz. Well, again, I could play okay lead trumpet jazz, and as we all know, that's just playing some high notes and a lot of flashy stuff. But if they wanted me to come in and do a jazz trumpet solo, I turned it down. I said, no, call Warren, call Wayne, call somebody else. I never put myself in the position where I was going to fail, or I thought I was going to fail. So
Right.
I just didn't,
Yeah. This is the $1 million question. Oh, I'm getting stuff. People are eating this up, Rick. I mean,
Oh, good. Thank you. I hope so. I'm having a ball.
A buddy of mine from Spain is up. It's like, I don't know what, 4 in the morning or something around there. He's watching this right now. So, first of all, I'm going to ask this question. This is the $1 million question that everyone's asking, Rick. What's going to happen to our business, in your opinion? What's going on? In your opinion, what do you think is going to happen?
All right. In my opinion, is I will say it as the vice president of the musician union, and that is that I think for the foreseeable, maybe next 4, 5, 6 months, from what we've understood from the doctors and from the different companies, right now we have started we have started working in the studios again, because in the studios it's a closed environment, and and we have come up with some very, very good protocols to protect our musicians, to keep them healthy, right? Like if you're right now, 6 weeks ago they did a brand new movie at Fox, and they had the orchestra, so they split the sessions up for the orchestra. Normally on a motion picture call, you get called for a 10 o'clock double, which means it's 10 to 12 and then 2 to 5. So it's 6 hours of recording, right? So what they're doing is they call the strings in first. The strings can sit and wear masks when they play, and they sit one to a stand, so there's a little social distancing. And so they record the strings from 10 until 1. Then before they even go into the studio, all the musicians have to be tested. You have to get tested. And there is a nurse at station, when you walk into the studio at Fox, she takes your temperature, she asks questions of you, how you feeling, whatever. And then you go into the stage. We've changed it so that normally you get a 10-minute break every hour, pee break or whatever. Well, we've changed that so that it gives you more time to go to the restroom and do that. So they've made the breaks a little bit longer. So we adjust that. So the strings would go from 10 to 1. Then they would leave. Then at 2 o'clock, they'd sanitize the stage, they do whatever they have to do, and then they have the woodwind section come in, right? And they'll do that. And then in the evening, the brass section comes in. Again, social distancing, the whole thing are separated, but at least they're recording the music. Then the next day, the percussion come in. But as far as live, the live stuff is going to be tough. I think probably from what we're hearing from the governor's office in Los Angeles, from what we're hearing from the people who are, as we say, driving the bus, is that they think that like the big venues like the Hollywood Bowl or the Greek Theater, where they have fixed seating, and fixed seating, there's no social distancing. Those venues will not probably open up until June of next year. But the musicians, the LA Phil has actually done a couple things filmed wise from the Hollywood Bowl, and they are all separated, plexiglass in front of the brass so that when they play, it doesn't hit the strings and all that. I just think that there's some really creative ideas that are happening, but because of the live, the concert halls and even Broadway, that they're thinking about possibly doing Broadway, but with protection for the musicians in the pit. The pit is closed up. There is, all sorts of protocols for the musicians to be safe, but to protect the audience, that's going to be the problem, So, I mean, I'm hoping, in answer to the $1 million question, I think that if we can get by this now second wave and whatever, and they're able to get a hold of, some kind of a vaccine, I think the middle of 2021, things will start to open up a little bit. I think so.
Yeah. Well, things are already, I mean, I've heard of sessions being done from brass players remotely, that they do it at their home.
Right. Absolutely. Dan's been involved with those. Yeah.
And I've heard of, the same thing you're talking about, but
yeah,
only time will tell. And so here's another question. This comes from actually a student of mine who I haven't listened to the Animaniacs things. If he wants to,
great.
I'm like, listen to that player, Anyway, so he says, this is from David, and he says, Mr. Baptist, I'm a sophomore in college now, and I really, really want to be a professional musician, but it doesn't look like there's a lot of prospects in the near future. Can you give me some advice?
Now, would it be not a lot of prospects for the near future because of the COVID, or because he feels that there's no opportunities?
I think what he's saying is because of the industry, the way it's changed,
Right.
now, yeah.
And again, I hate to agree. I mean, who anybody would ever thought that something would have come like this to stop the music?
Mm.
I mean, it's crazy. I watched the Emmys. I did the Emmys for 28 years. This year they had a DJ. There was no live musicians. That's crazy. I do know that they are talking as far as in the Oscars to have a live band. So that's good, you know. But as far as for your 10th grade student, I would say to try and be the best player, best all around player. And that means learn all the different styles. Learn, if they put in front of you music in the mood, I want it just like in 1940. Know how to play that style. Because the more you can bring to the table as a player will make you valuable to the people that hired you. So I just say play in everything you could possibly do. Take anything. Like I said, there's a lot of opportunities to play your trumpet. Some will get paid, some you won't, but it doesn't matter. You're playing your instrument. The more you could play your instrument and to find out what your weaknesses are, because you'll know what you can do and what you can't do, but find out what your strengths are and build on your strengths. So I mean, that's about the only way I could answer it, is that I truly believe in my heart, and I pray to God that things will go back to semi-normal or whatever the new normal is going to be. But I think that um, just keep listening to records and CDs, and try to learn from everybody. And I'm going to give you, or can you give out my email to anybody who asks for it?
Yeah.
I will. You ask me any questions you want. My email, I'm going to give it to you right now for everybody out there. My personal email, is nocoda, NOCODA, and the number one, nocoda1 at AOL.com. Any questions you have, if you need advice, personal advice about anything, about equipment, a lot of guys, again, I played Shokis for 50 years. I never changed from Shokis. Why, when you got the best, why do you want to change? But there's other instruments that maybe you could play. Mouthpiece, I always played. In 1970, I went to Bob Reeves. I had a Bach 3C mouthpiece. I said, please make the rim a little wider, because I have big chops like you do, Joe. You know, and so just make it a little wider. So I played the same mouthpiece with different backboards, Warburton backboards. I didn't use a real big backboard, because then you got to work too hard on the high notes and stuff. But I think I used the number 5 backboard. But yeah, so I played the same mouthpiece since 1970. Never changed mouthpieces. I see guys changing horns all the times. I think that sometimes that'll hurt you. Play what you got, get the best sound you can. The other guys who are sitting around are going to say, "Hey, man, that sounds great," or "That sucks. What are you doing?" So whatever, I mean, that's what friends are for. I want my friends to be truthful to me.
Yeah.
Hey, man, you suck today. Okay, maybe I did. You're right. So tomorrow I'm going to come in and I'm going to make you eat those words tomorrow. So you have to, you just have to, and like I said, any questions anybody out there has, I absolutely will answer them personally, because I love that. I love talking to younger musicians, even older musicians. I don't care. But I feel blessed to do what I've done, and I want to give back, and I really do. I really want to give back.
Well, I one of the things I've found the common denominator between world-class musicians like yourself is that you absolutely fall in love with the instrument, you know.
Yeah.
And the number two is that you always are goal orientated and you have a strong work ethic. You know, I've noticed that those three things, and you guys are just stellar people. You know, like you and Danny Finero, all those guys, not to name drop, but you guys, when I talk to you on the phone, it's just like I've known you for years, you know? And it's
Oh,
just like,
that's
you know,
cool. I appreciate that.
yeah.
That's really cool. I do appreciate that. And 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 I think it's because of the guys that have helped me out, like I said, throughout my whole career, and encouraged me throughout my whole career, no matter if it was the Bay Area, Reno, or Vegas, or LA, or anywhere. You know, uh, I see, and I've always felt that the real great players are usually the first guys who help want to help you out. It's the guys who are not that great are the ones who they're jealous of you, especially if you're a good player. They're really jealous of you. Well, you're going to steal my job. The great guys, they said, "Hey, this guy's a great player. Let's help him along to make him even better." So I think in what you're saying, and I agree, is that uh, uh, if there's somebody that you idolized, and they end up to be, you find out they're real jerks. Uh, that's that's sad. That really is. And just as being a player, yeah, you gotta love it. And for me, a lot of people say, Rick, do you play anymore? Well, no, I don't. I haven't touched my horn in 5 years, and it kills me to say that. But also, I really hated practicing.
Yeah.
But I worked all the time, so I didn't have to practice. But if I knew I had like 2 days off or something, for me, what I would do, there was a great female trumpeter in this town. Her name is Glenda Smith.
Mhm.
And I would call her up. I said, Glenda, you got to beat me up. And I would go over to her house and we would play 2 hours of duets, which was fun and beat the chops. But the next day, man, I was ready for anything.
Yeah.
And that was the important thing. The other thing, I always tell this to a lot of the musicians and the master classes that I do and all that, is that, let's say you're playing a Latin gig Saturday night and you beat the hell out of your chops. The next morning you have to play in church, right? And it's real, and you're puffy or whatever. The way you can get rid of that puffiness from the beating up the night before is when you go to bed, you take an aspirin, just a regular bare aspirin. And the reason they tell heart patients to take an aspirin is because aspirin thins out the blood. Now the body knows where the damage is, which is right here, right? So it sends, while you're asleep, the aspirin thins out the blood. It sends extra blood to here. You'll wake up in the morning, and I guarantee you will not be puffy. You might be sore, but you won't be puffy, and you'll be able to play. And I've done that through my whole career, and believe me, it works. It works. One
No,
aspirin, all you need.
I've
Not
heard.
Tylenol, not Advil, not any of those things. Don't do that. Aspirin.
Wow. And Rick, like I said, the opportunity to sit here and ask the book a question is just amazing. And I'm just so thankful to have you here. I got just one more question. I think this is a really good one, and then we'll have to sign off. But
Okay.
this is a real good one. This is from April. She's a trumpet player out of the Michigan area, and
Okay.
she says it's kind of long, so I'm gonna give you the Reader's Digest version. So she says, Mr. Baptist, I'm a big fan of your playing. I love your studio work that you've done over the years. Name three things you think separate the upper echelon players from just the regular Joes.
That's easy. Concentration. Number one, concentration, and that's on any instrument. When we sit in the studio, you look at that music, and concentration, hands down, it really is the most important thing. And all of you can seriously think back when you're playing on a first time you're playing a piece of music, as I said before. You'll play it great because you're concentrated. The second time or third time is your mind wanders. That's when you screw up. So I really believe, I feel that the great players, that's one of their things is concentration. I think the other thing is three things. Okay, that's number one. For me, it's always been number one, and I really believe that. Number two, enjoy the hell out of it. That's I mean, again, how blessed are we to do something and get paid for it? And then, I mean, it's still a thrill when I'm channel surfing and I see, a movie that comes up and I say, oh yeah, I remember that. Oh, I forgot. I mean, that's a blessing. I understand that. To make music for people in the audience, whether you're playing at church, on a gig, or whatever, you're doing something that they wish they could have done. I can't tell you the amount of people I came up. Well, my favorite, and I have it in my office. We were doing Pixar's Monsters Inc., right?
Mhm.
And John Lasseter, who was the director, came back and he said, "Hey guys, I want you to meet my partner." And he brings in the great Steve Jobs, who was CEO of Pixar.
Mhm.
So Steve Jobs came back and stood back with Malcolm and myself. And he says, I played trumpet in junior high and high school. I says, get out, you're kidding. He says, no, I did. So Randy Newman was doing something with the strings. And so I gave him my cornet. I said, okay, play a C scale. Now, in hindsight, I was testing a guy who at the time was worth like $20 billion, right? Took the horn and he goes, da, 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 and he played a C scale and it sucked, but he played it. It was so cool. He gave it back to me. He said, geez, I'm kind of glad I don't do this anymore. And I said, yeah, so are we, right? But anyway, it was a trumpet player. He took trumpet in school and loves music. We do most of these stars, they would come in. For example, Anthony Hopkins, Hannibal Lecter, right?
Mhm.
We were doing those movies, and he came and stood back with the trumpets the whole session because he played piano and he loves music. They wish they could do what we could do. How cool is that? And he was telling me, so I said to him, I said, what did you do? What kind of scales did you do to become Hannibal Lecter, right? And he said, well, truthfully, Rick, what I did was I sat and watched 50 hours of interviews of mass murderers, and I took one thing away from that. So we're leaning in, yeah. And he said that one thing is, and you got to do this when you watch Silence of the Lamb. He says that one thing is that when they talk to you, they never blink, which gave him that maniacal kind of look. And in that whole movie, he never blinks when he's on camera.
Oh
But
wow.
anyway, we've had Arnold Schwarzenegger come in. He loves the music. He loves what we do for them. They wish they could do what we do. So um, I just think it's a matter of just loving it and trying to be the best you can be.
Yeah.
That's all. I mean, it's easy to say, it's hard to do, but you surround yourself. The greatest thing is to play in a band. My gosh, at school, everybody, all the band people hang together. Why? Because we love what everybody else does.
Yeah.
So I think my answer, again, number one with a bullet, is concentration. And concentration in that you're listening to everything you play as well as what's on the page.
Yeah. Well, there you go, April. And
Sorry, I wish. I mean, yeah, I really that truthfully is April. I really believe that that's what
yeah,
it is.
yeah, and first of all, it's like for those of you watching, first of all, Rick, thank you for the lesson.
Oh,
Thank you for the lesson. I mean, there's a lifetime of lesson worth in this. For those of you watching football, you can watch this later. But I want to thank you, Rick, from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much for spending time with. I know you got things going on, you got things to do, and
well, I'll tell you this. I was really, really looking forward to this, and it became beyond my expectation. I thank you, Joe. This is way cool. I'll come back anytime, and I'm pleased. If there's anybody who wants to personally email me, please do. There's so many other little tricks that I want to, I didn't get a chance to talk about. But if you want to do this again, you let me know. I'll be there for you.
Rick, we'd love to have you back if you're willing to do that.
Absolutely.
And first of all, again, I said it before, and I'll say it again. Thank you for everything you've done for trumpet players.
Thank you.
Guys, thank you so much for joining us today. And we had the great Rick Baptist with us. Again, if you have any questions or if you just caught us, Rick gave his, if you watch this, Rick gave his email address. You can ask Rick directly, or you can go ahead and comment below on this feed, and I'll make sure Rick gets the question. So
fantastic.
Guys, thanks so much. Rick, thank you again. And we'll catch everyone later. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you, Joseph. Appreciate it, buddy. And God bless everybody. And just keep doing it. Have fun.
Thanks, Rick.
All right. Thank you, buddy.
All right.
Bye-bye.